Hello and good morning. This is Joe. I will be sharing with you today and over the course of the next several weeks how to build a scale garage diorama. Mine will be in 1/8 scale. Some typical sizes. This is going to be a 1960s era style build. So back then 2x4s would have been actual 2x4s, which would measure 1/4 by 1/2 inch. The longest boards that you would typically get for framework would be 16 feet. So I ordered all of these at 24 inches long, which would be a scale 16 feet. The garage size that I will be building will be a 2-car garage, which would be 20 foot by 24 foot. Or in scale, that would be 30 inches by 36 inches. The boards would be placed on 16 inches on center back then, which would be 2 inches in 1/8 scale. Your typical boards would be 8 foot long for the walls, which would be 12 inches. And another measurement you'll need to fill in would be 4 foot on an extra length, which would be 6 inches. Your garage door back then would have been a double wide door, which would have been 16 foot wide by 7 foot tall, which would have been 24 inches by 10.5 inches tall. Your normal side door would have been 3 foot by 6 foot 8 inches, which would be 4.5 inches by 10 inches. And your normal window opening would have been 18 inches by 24 inches. In scale, that would be 2.25 inches by 3 inches. So these will be the common sizes that you will need if you're going to build a garage, a 2-car garage, in 1/8 scale. Now I apologize if I'm a little stuffy, snuffly, what have you. 'Tis the season. Kid has brought home some yummies. Yuckies. So when you're doing this, some of the things you need, if you have a tabletop miter cutoff saw, that will greatly speed things up, but you can use a handheld cutoff saw. You'll need a pencil or a pen for marking, a tape measure or a ruler. You'll need a square. If you're going to build and try to keep things square, you're going to need some way of making like a jig. So on here I'm going to use my metal plate with magnets. For gluing the ends, I'm going to use your original Gorilla Glue. This takes a couple of hours to set, so this will be a slow process. You quicken that up, or you set it by using water and a brush. I got water in an old coffee mug and a brush. So those will be the tools you will need. Now, being 24 foot, that would be 36 inches long. These start out at 24 inches long. So you'll need a 36. So you'll need 2 cut in half. So you need 1 full length bottom, 2 for full length top. And then you will need 3 more cut at the 12-inch length. So you'll take these and you'll measure them. These are 24 inches, so you need the 12-inch length, so you will mark them in half at the 12-inch mark. Now mind you, when you cut these, the saw blade does have a little bit of thickness to it. So you can either take your measurement and subtract half of that width. Or, if you can try to set up a stop and cut it and then flip it over and cut it again. That is what I will be attempting to do. Now we will need roughly, I think, 18 upright studs to do this. So I've gathered a whole bunch of those and I've marked them to start with. So for this, I am going to want to set this where the cut will be just on the inside of that line. I'm going to try to bring this pretty well even to the front. And I'm going to try to use these stronger magnets, square magnets that I have. To create a end stop. I will be double checking every cut, but hopefully that stays as long as I don't manhandle anything too difficult. And then I'll proceed to cut this whole pile. So we will zoom through this quickly. There's the first one. Now just to double check it as I do this, you'll see there is a slight difference there in height. And we'll come back and set it up against that piece and bring it down and double check with length here. Not want to cut all the way through, so I will not be able to do that every time. And my end piece did move, so this will be time consuming, double checking each one. That's a-okay, right? So there's the first two 8-foot, scale 8-foot studs. And we will come back in a moment when I have the whole pile done. Now, as I've been going through with these, I've been setting one upright, as you can see here, lining up the ends, and then sliding it in till this end hits the blade, and then cutting. Just flip it around and do the same thing. Most of these were a little over length. So Some of these were right spot on, just like that one. I was fortunate enough I did not get any that were too short. In the event that you do not fret, because you can always use them for your jack studs or your cripple studs or your sole plates on like the side where you have from your side door to the end, or the sole plates on the outsides of where your garage door opener, your garage door will be. So don't fret if you end up with something short. Now that you've gotten all of your pile of lumber out of the way and cut and ready, next will come the next fun part, and as you can see, my metal plate will be not large enough to do both sides. So if you want to do this, you can do starting here and go down through and glue, but you're only going to get a couple of studs in at a time. And being a 36-inch piece, my table is real small. It's only 16 inches deep. So you're going to be, you could do it in steps that way if you want, on one half and then the other half. Or you could go onto a regular cover sheet, cover plate, and do it that way, or take everything off and do it. If you don't use your metal piece, you're going to need to tape it or something to hold them, because, mind you, the glue takes 2 hours to set, full cure in 24 hours. So I will be opting, or at least I will be trying first, to build the wall this way. Now, common terms you will need to know. Will be all of your different framing plates. The sole plate is what goes on the bottom. You have common studs. They'll be going up every 2 inches. What goes on top of that is your top plate. Now when you do your walls and you put your end wall to your top or to your side wall, you will overlap your joints with a second top plate. Other terms you'll see when you are doing your door framing is you'll have your, what would otherwise be a common stud, the outside 2x4 would be your king stud. And then your next one would be, not as high in here, that would be called your jack stud. And then the two boards side by side glued, nailed together, would be your header board. The little boards going from the top of your header board to the top of the wall will be called your cripple studs. So those are, I think, all of the common terms. If I missed one, I'll catch it later in the video. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use, see, these are two different lengths. When you go to do your top and your sole plate, make sure your boards that you are using are going to be the same size. If you need to trim them, go ahead and trim them. Almost did not catch that. The other thing I will be doing is I will be using little pins. When I join these, I'm going to use little pins just like nails. So let me get set up for that part. Alright, now once you're set for this and ready to move forward, you will put first your sole plate down. This is where I like to use the square because I'll put it up against my metal piece, and then I'll use this. Now back in the 60s, you used what was called a 3-stud corner. Many of you may know the California corner now, where you would build it with these pieces, kind of like an L, like this, onto here, so you would have space to shove insulation into here. And if you're building a more modern building, you will want to do it that way to represent how they do it now. That came out around, I think it was early mid-80s. Before then, they used what was called the 3-corner stud. And you would do these this way. And then when you did the other wall, you would get one more. So it was 3 studs lined up in a straight piece when you added the 2 wall sections together. And then you would add one more L in here to nail your drywall to, if you planned on using drywall, etc. Some sort of inside board. I'm doing a 60s style because the cars I'll be building to put in there is going to be 60s era style as well. So we'll do the first one here. Probably best if I take 2 of these and glue them together first. And again, I'm using Gorilla Original Glue. This will, you want to dampen one part of it and then glue it and then let it sit for 2 hours while it starts to dry and harden. A full cure is 24 hours. So I'll put some of this down the first board, our first 2x4. I did not think about grabbing a wet rag. I probably should advise that you have a wet rag in case you have any extra. That seeps out when you join the pieces. You want to be very liberal on putting this on your boards so that your board is nice and wet. And when you get from one end to the other, if you have a spot that looks like it's starting to dry out, by all means go back and put a little more on. And that should work. Just lay them together. Press them together. If you would like, you can use some clamps on it. I was going to say, I don't think these will open up. My other metal ones would open up enough, but they are at my other workstation. Now, as I said, I'm going to use little nails to tack these together, little pins, just like a nail. just to help with the structural integrity of it all. I got one that got stuck in my finger. The other reason I'm doing this because it'll help hold it together for the next 24 hours while it is curing. And while you're doing that, and you want to let this dry a little bit more, you can start to mark out your 2 inches. Now, once you have your wet rags, you need to mark out where your boards are going to go. Now, mind you, our wall's going to be 24 feet long, or a total of 36 inches. So your normal board is 24 inches. So your remainder for that is 12 inches. And I forgot about this already real quick. 12 inches, that should be one of these. Your normal 8-foot stud. So when you're doing your wall, you're going to do this and then an 8-foot with your boards. When you go to do your top board, you will overlap the 24-inch over top of the 8-inch so that you get more structural integrity. Now we got our double here that will go on the end. And I'm going to put nails in that to help hold that together before we get going too far. Sure my ends are lined up. No reason to be very precise here. I mean, when you're building a wall, you're not all that precise on where you put them either, so. Although in real life, you'd probably use a whole lot more than what I will be on this. If you want more scale realism, you could get silver pins. That would be actual scale length, if you so choose, so it looks more realistic. If I did not have pins on hand already, I would have done that, but I will be using what I have on hand. Now this is a 1/2 inch long, and this is a 1/4. So to do on center for your next one, it would be an 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to be a 1/2 inch plus an 1/8 of an inch. So 5/8 of an inch in from the end you'll be marking. Sometimes these get loose, and when you're building a real wall, that will be fine, but I want to start at the actual 1-inch line to make sure I'm a little more precise since we are in scale. So there's our first one. Now it's going to be every 2 inches. You'll be marking, I'll be marking both sides of the board on both bottom plate and top plate. 2 inches. 2 inches. And the reason for that will be so that I have an idea of where to put my little nails through the board to go into the studs. Mind you, in real life you would nail your studs probably 2 nails that way. I'm going to be doing 1 pin or nail. Magnets, wanting to grab the end of my tape measure. Give me a little bit of fun times, if you will. Now for the top plate, we're going to be the same thing. 5/8 of an inch in, and then every 2 inches. Now it's going to be much harder to try to put these nails in once you start assembling. So I'm going to start putting my nails in now. That's still, oh, bit of glue on that. There we go. It's going to get tacky. So go ahead and start putting in your nails now. If you're going on metal, you'll hear it when you hit onto the metal. It'll sound just slightly different. If you heard that thud, 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 thung. Now, remember, we want to try to get these as straight as possible. But even with real nails, I have such a hard time trying to keep them completely straight. So just get them as close as possible so it'll go into the end of the other board. So just like building a real wall, you will end up where you bend some stinking nails, won't you? And there's that. I say I got a little bit of glue on here. I want to clean that up before I get a little bump on my metal plate. I do not wish that. So now we're ready to start our assembly. need to start these standing it up. I don't know. I will try to do it this way. I got a feeling I'm going to have to stand it up to do it. Nope, I was able to do it that way. We are good. Alright. Glue is sticky. That is for sure. And I forgot my 2 nails on the end here. One in, the other got bent. So we will have to pull that out, try to bend it, and see if we can hammer that back in some more. I forgot something already. Trying to get ahead of myself. We want to glue the joint. So we want to pull this back out. We want to put a little bit of glue on that joint and a little bit of water. Slow and easy wins the race. When we start to rush, as I just did, that's where we will start to make our mistakes, as I just did. I have never been called fumble fingers for no reason either. This one does not wish to go in very well. There we are. Mind you, as you progress forward, you'll want to keep double checking that you got this square, and then we can do that by starting to set up these magnets to help hold it. Square magnets I really prefer on this. Obviously I do not have enough. However, so you can always use other magnets. to help hold it. Alright, once you have it jigged up, we're only going to be able to put in 5 common studs. Alright, we'll start with the one furthest away this way. To give us some strength so we don't start going this way too much. As you can tell, we're going to have to do this in several sections to get this done. So this will not happen all today. This will take a few days to get this one wall done. Line that up, putting that pencil mark on the center. Of your board. Now, part of the reason why I'm using this glue instead of something that sets fast, because as you can see as I'm trying to hammer these in and stuff, it's moving. So I can go through and I can put all these joists in, or all these common studs in here. And then I can go back and I can double check its squareness and everything and set it. And leave it. And then let it dry. Almost feels like I'm building a real wall just in miniature, and therefore I don't want to think about the glue. But we need to think about the glue, because this is scale. And even though I plan on putting this in a fairly permanent place, we never know what the future holds. I own my home free and clear, so I don't foresee moving at any time. But being scale, if we ever do have to move, I'll need to move it. So I want to make sure that this is as solid as possible. There we are. Alright, now to set this back up again at a 90, then we will let it sit and stay. And there you have it, the beginning of our first wall. I will come back tomorrow and we will move forward, so stay tuned. Thank you and have a good day. See you later and God bless you guys. Hello and good morning. Welcome to the next section of the wall. just another brick in the wall. This is the long wall that will be going up against a real wall, so there's no windows or doors in this section. The very back of the garage will be the same, as this will be getting mounted on a shelf that will be just above my dog crate. So moving forward, I'm going to put the top plate on here after I get this stud in. And then we'll continue down. I'll be able to do possibly 4 more studs. And then we'll have to transition over and do 2 more sections in the next couple of days. And then when I get done, there'll be a section in the center, and I'll have to just put it this way and fill in that center section. So without further ado, let's get this next one in, and then we can go forward with a top plate, and I'll show you how to do that, and then we'll do the next couple. Remember, dampen your wood. That is what helps kick the super glue. Now we put a little bit of super glue on the ends of our common studs. Try to lay this down flat. This one is a tight fit in here. For some reason. Same length as another one. So I'm going to assume that one of these 2 boards are both bowed a little bit last night during the evening. That one got bent. More bent nails. We always do bent nails, don't we? I think I'm going to have to take this out and just replace it. There we are. Now when we go to put this top plate on, remember that we overlap on the corners. So we will have this one here coming from the front. We'll go ahead and draw our line, and then we'll know where to go on this. Now this is a 2-part, because remember, we also have to have another one here, and these, we're going to have to do these nails, and then this. So I'm marking this for right now, getting it ready to put on, and I'll just tack it. I won't be gluing it when I get these couple done. I'll just be tacking it to give a little bit of strength in here. Once we get this whole section done here with all the nails in, then I can go and glue it. I'm going to use a couple of my magnets in the back here to help hold that up while we're working on these. The difficult part will be trying to keep this straight while we're doing this. We will have, again, 3 boards to put on, so very little work today. And we will have to measure top and bottom for this. I believe this was 1 inch. It was just a little over 1 inch. So we'll have to do this to draw our first line. This is where more than one hand or more than 2 hands could be beneficial. I will use this magnet to my benefit here. So this is 1, 2. Buckle my shoe. 3, 4. Oh, sorry. So now I'll go through and I'll mark this whole length every 2 inches. Now that we have that marked, we can move forward. Don't forget, if you've not picked up any merch yet and you're interested, stop by and pick yourself up some. I want that one away from me. Flip this over. There we go. Now we'll want to glue this stud, this top plate. We'll want to glue the joint to this top plate after we put in a stud. So I'm going to put in this stud and then this stud right after putting glue on that one. So even though this takes a long time to cure, this can flop around a lot. So I'm going to try to do this fairly quickly. So stay with me here. I do need to put in 3 nails on this before I forget it. Now that we are ready, this will be the difficult part because it's going to want to flop that way. And I need to get these joints done too at the same time. I'm going to start in at the second one to try to give it some strength this way. have one more here to do real quick. Hopefully we can without much issue since we have no support here, but I want to try to give at least one more board of strength here. You can see it obviously when we get done we're going to want to do it this way. And once I get it turned I may do a couple more, but why don't we just plan on that right now? It'll actually allow us to get a couple more of these done today, to be honest as well. So you can see we got a gap here, so we don't have the greatest strength here, but I think that'll give us more strength doing it this way in this section than it will this. And then hopefully we can get this on today. So if we do 4 more studs. Now you can see that does create an awkward position for doing that. But we go as we can, don't we? Now, I'm going to spread that apart just a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit more water in there and a little bit more glue in there. And then I will re-clamp that real quick. Still feeling kind of sick today, and I feel like I'm fumble fingers today. A little out of sorts. But my goal, if I can, is to try to get this wall section done this week and move on to the next one next week. For next week's video, if we may. Now this side is supported on the metal, this side's overhanging, so I will be putting in this series of nails first and then to this side because I will have to hold it in line. So I'll start with the supported side, which is easier. Now since I will have to stand this up to do the second top plate, I'll first stand it up, make sure all the nails in the bottom are sunk in all the way. I'll set that to the side for a second. We gotta get a couple of nails in this one. We can do the full length. They're only going to be a few. Don't need very many. So we will go ahead and put glue across this. Actually, let me put glue across this. Be easier to put the water on the other one. We will get the clamp out of here. A little bit more glue in here. This is definitely where putting the top plate will help. Now when we get to the other end of the bottom, we will not have that luxury. And that will help conclude this part Just have to stand all these up so they are straight. And then let it dry for the next 24 hours. The next section will be on the small remaining length, about that much, of the wall, and then this wall will be done. So stay tuned. Peace out. Good evening. I am back for the last installment of this wall. I've already pre-nailed the last sections of this wall. This is a short section. This is going to be hard to keep straight. I'm going to try to use a clamp on it. I'm going to try this board, then down here, and then work back and forth until this seems fairly solid. And then I will glue this last. We already learned on the other end that it will not stay if I try to glue it to start with. So without further ado, let's get this wall done. Alright guys, I will grab some tape and tape this up and jig it down and let it dry for the next 24 hours. Make sure everything stays straight. Otherwise, there is your one side wall. So until our next installment of tips, tricks, how-tos, and product reviews, coming from Joe to you, God bless you. Have a great night. Thank you.